Let's play a game inspired by some new additions to my TBR pile. But first, a bit of background. Last week, I received a surprise gift from a friend. She sent 6 books, which were totally unexpected and totally welcome. But what was really interesting about them was that they were not books I would ever have chosen for myself. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. I'm such a self-directed reader that it is rare for me to receive books that were not already on my mental TBR list. And when I do, it's as if someone planned a reading adventure for me, which makes it kind of exciting. And I thought it would be interesting to do a twist on the typical haul video and to make this another sort of get to know you video because I'm still a booktube newbie, and to gamify it a bit by showing you books from my TBR pile in pairs and asking you to guess which ones I chose and which ones my friend chose. And to make it fair, because as I said, I'm a newbie, I will show 5 books to give an idea of my reading taste and also an idea of the kind of books I do choose when I step out of my comfort zone by giving myself special reading projects. The first 3 books are 5-star reads from last year, which were also rereads, strangely enough. But I did pick the ones I had the best reading experience with. Let's start with The Swiftly Tilting Planet, which is probably my favorite book from childhood. It's part of the series that begins with A Wrinkle in Time, her most famous book. And in this one, the brother and sister travel back into the past with the help of a unicorn in order to prevent nuclear war in the present. I feel I did not describe it very well, but it really is fantastic. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, another 5-star reread from last year. Do I still have to describe this? Okay, just to be fair, I will. It is the funny side and the sad side of being a young woman in Regency England who has very sketchy marriage prospects. The Giver by Lois Lowry. This was both a nostalgic reread and part of a reading project. I read it for Banned Books Week. This is the first dystopian novel that was ever written for children, and it's pretty good. I think it's up there with the dystopian classics that were written for adults. It is about a community where there is seemingly no sadness, no disease, no hunger, and no suffering. The key word being seemingly. Taiwan Travelogue by Yang Shuangji is a book I read for Women in Translation Month. It is a historical novel set at a time when Taiwan was a colony of Japan, and it is the story of a friendship between a Japanese woman and her Taiwanese translator. And it asks the question, can one of the colonizers and one of the colonized ever truly be friends? The Secret River by Kate Grenville. I chose this for a personal reading project because I was getting ready for a trip to Australia and I wanted to read a book to prepare me for visiting Australia. This is another historical novel set at a time when the English settlers in the early 1800s were trying to claim land that was already inhabited by the Aboriginal people. And it depicts a pretty dark time in Australian history. So those are 5 books, which, as I said, represent my usual taste and also the kind of books I go for when I deliberately choose something different for myself. So now let's look at the pair. Pair 1, The Jungle Books by Rudyard Kipling, Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. The Jungle Books is a bunch of short stories, mostly about Mowgli, a man cub who was abandoned as an infant and raised by jungle animals who are wise and witty in their own ways. And Water for Elephants is a historical novel set during the Great Depression, in which a veterinary student joins a traveling circus and becomes entangled in the lives of the human performers while caring for the animal performers. Pair 2, The Art of Taxidermy by Sharon Kernot and Watermark by Vanita Sankaran. In The Art of Taxidermy, a teen girl is dealing with the grief of losing her mother and her sister by collecting dead animals. It's also, interestingly enough, a verse novel. In Watermark, which is a historical set during the early 1300s in France, a papermaker's daughter learns to read and write at a time not just when women were not educated, but also when Cathars were disseminating heretical pamphlets and the clergy and the Inquisition were cracking down. Pair 3, Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mehrer and A Novel Bookstore by Laurence Cosset. An assistant to the villain, a dark lord of a fairy tale realm wants to hire an office assistant so that he may unleash havoc and mayhem much more efficiently. This is a parody not just of fairy tales, but also of the modern rom-com. And if we're going by tropes, I guess it's Grumpy meets Sunshine. In A Novel Bookstore, the members of a super secret committee who select literature based on merit are suddenly ending up dead or in accidents. But who would want to kill people just for expressing their literary taste? This might be a murder mystery. Pair 4, Golden Sun by Pierce Brown and Unreported Murders by Budget Tan and Cajo Baldissimo. Golden Sun is the second book in the Red Rising trilogy, which is about an enslaved member of the Reds who infiltrates the world of the Golds in order to overthrow them and liberate his people. Unresolved Murders is the second book in the Trece series of graphic novels, in which a young woman with one foot in our world and one foot in the world of Philippine folklore explores crimes that have something to do with the preternatural. Before I tell you which ones I chose and which ones my friend chose, I want to add one more thought on books as gifts, because it seems to me, in my very subjective N=1 experience, that people don't really give books as gifts anymore. At least not to me. People prefer to give gift certificates so that you can choose your own books in bookstores. And I think this is because even with eclectic readers, it is hard to predict taste. And with there being such a wide selection of books coming out, with authors who understand that their readership might be very niche, it can be hard even for bestsellers to have a really high chance of pleasing a large number of people. And that's probably the reason why I do not receive many books as gifts. Of the books behind me, 99% were books I chose for myself. And the very few that were given as gifts were given to me when I was a child, because adults feel more secure buying books for children. At least more secure than other adults are buying books for their peers. And the reverse is also true. I used to give books as gifts quite often and have the pleasure of the recipients coming to me and saying, I really liked that book. But I don't do it that often now. And it's mostly because my friends will readily say to me, they don't really like everything they read. There are some books they will simply not read. And they generally prefer to choose their own reading and not want to feel pressured by reading something someone else chose. So, what about you? What do you think? What has your experience been? Pair 1. The book I chose for myself was The Jungle Books. And if you guessed The Jungle Books because I had a pile of other Penguin Popular Classics right behind it, that was a fair way to come to that answer. Pile 2. The one I chose for myself was The Art of Taxidermy. This was also part of my trip to Australia. If The Secret River was travel prep to get me hyped up, The Art of Taxidermy was a souvenir that I bought there and brought back home. Pile 3. Which one did I choose for myself? It was a novel bookstore. What's interesting about this book, however, is I chose it for myself as part of a giveaway prize, and there was a list of books to choose from. So I did not enter the giveaway thinking I could choose whichever book I wanted. There was a limited selection. I had to read the summaries and reviews of all the books before I decided, okay, this one is the one most likely to be fun for me. Pile 4. The one I chose for myself was Unreported Murders. Though you would really need an eagle eye to see the very narrow copy of the first Trece graphic novel on that shelf behind me. Okay, so how did you do? Do you have any thoughts on these 8 books that I showed you? And if you do, are there any you think that I should push up the queue on books as gifts? Do you like receiving them? Do you like giving them? Do you like being surprised? Let me know. I would love to read your comments.